Welcome to the Sally Allen podcast. It's Sally Allen, your host here again. And today I am incredibly happy to let you know we have a wonderful guest. His name is Oliver Chow. We met at our former job, and I knew him a little bit back then, but he is pretty interesting. He doesn't think he is, but I think he's a pretty interesting person. He's the CFO of Light and Wonder, and he has two girls there in the other room watching him, so he's on best behavior. But Oliver, welcome to the Sally Allen podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you, Sally. This is great. I appreciate you inviting a finance guy to the chair.
Are finance guys boring? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we have a bit of a stigma, finance, accounting,
Yeah.
not the most exciting
I thought it was
humans in the world.
HR, like HR is
No, HR is very dynamic.
HR dynamic
Yeah.
finance.
Finance and accounting has we do have a reputation, but I try to break the mold a little bit
Yeah,
here.
yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. So very interesting. I didn't know this because I don't interview my guests or talk to them before we get on camera. But Oliver just said, "Hey, I was an aspiring filmmaker." We open with that.
Loosely
How about
speaking,
that?
yeah. Loosely speaking, yes.
Tell us about that for a minute.
Yeah, growing up, my dad he was a finance guy. So, being the good Chinese son, I did end up following in his footsteps. But he was in the entertainment space for many years, and so he worked for Marvel Comics. He worked for special effects companies, a few of them, and so they did the special effects for the original Predator movie. I don't know if you've ever seen that with Arnold
Wow,
Schwarzenegger.
yes,
Yep, and
that's one of my favorite movies.
yeah, and then worked for companies as well, and started a company that did The Matrix and a couple other films. So I've always had this aspiration. I love movies, film, TV, and yeah, when I moved out to LA from New York, I went to the New York Film Academy, went to UCLA for cinematography, bought all this equipment, and yeah, had this dream. And then I was fortunate to have my oldest daughter, Addison, at that point. And at that point, I said, you know what? I probably need to stick with finance. So here I am. I think it's all worked out at the end. But yeah,
Wow.
I still have that itch every once in a while to shoot
Yeah.
a film or something of that nature.
That is such an interesting background.
Mm.
I didn't even know that your dad helped. What did you say? Produce some of these films?
No, he was a finance guy.
Finance.
So yeah,
He was a finance
he
guy.
was a finance guy. Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
interesting.
yeah. So I
So you
followed in
did
his
follow in
footsteps.
his footsteps
I did.
in
Yes.
in a different industry. Well, not really different.
Well, I was in the post production kind of world, entertainment space for a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then I went to Aristocrat where you and I met.
Yeah.
Yeah, where we met.
Wow. Very interesting background. I'm glad you share that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not many people will know that. Yeah, it's not something that I share very widely.
Are
But
you okay with it? Because
no,
it's
of
gonna go
course.
onto the public
Oh,
now.
absolutely. No, it's all good. It's all good.
Our
Yeah,
aspiring filmmaker.
aspiring filmmaker, and my oldest daughter killed my dreams. Yeah. So Addison, I know you're over in the other room there. So
He's just kidding.
I'm kidding.
Yeah. Or is he gonna have to pay for years of therapy?
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Oliver, growing up, I just had one of my friends Asian, and she was here, and she said, my dad wanted me to follow in his footsteps and be a doctor.
Yeah.
And your dad was a finance person. Was your dad, did he propel you like, hey, you got to be a finance person, or was that something you came into your own?
Yeah, I obviously growing up, I looked up to my dad a lot, and my mom actually was an accountant as well. So, they were both, finance numbers people, and I used to go to work with him, just like, I was telling you earlier, my girls came to work with me today. And yeah, I went to work with him on weekends, and that's how I kind of developed my work ethic. And I saw how hard he worked, and
Yeah.
just so fascinating to me. And I always loved money. So I think it was a
It's a
natural
good
fit at the
driver.
end of the
Yeah.
day. Yeah, it's a good
Yeah.
driver. And so, I was always good with numbers, and yeah, just really enjoyed the way, finance folks, I watched my dad kind of interact with the business, and it wasn't really just purely, count a number, count a P&L, what's the revenue, and, here's your
Yeah.
month end package. It was really, how do we drive strategy? How do we drive outcomes for the business? And I saw
Yeah.
my dad do that a lot, which I think stuck with me. And so
Yeah.
followed in his footsteps. My sister, went slightly the other way. She became a nurse practitioner, and was one of the top nurse practitioners in the country,
Yeah.
working at Sloan Kettering in New York. And so, yeah, so we're
Yeah.
both made my parents proud. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So you are a pretty young CFO. right?
Yeah, I don't feel young
You're like,
anymore,
you
but
don't feel
yes,
young
yeah,
anymore after being in
yeah,
a role for a while.
yeah,
It takes years off of you.
yeah,
But but you're pretty young, and from what you said before, you watch your dad and the
yeah,
work ethic, and that's what you develop. Obviously, that's part of what got you to where you are today. But what are some of those things if somebody's watching this, they are, and I don't know the positions in finance, but not a VP, but maybe a manager,
yeah.
aspiring to be where you are today. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot there, but I think one of the things I actually just had a skip level 101 with one of my colleagues earlier this morning, and we were talking about this. When I was younger in my career, and I still say this today, and I know this for a fact that I'm never the smartest person in the room,
Right.
and so for me, it really was how do I, and this is what I learned from my dad and from my mom, is how do I outwork everyone and how do I prepare and over prepare and be ready for the next step in my career. And so when I was younger, whether it was a senior analyst or a junior manager, really making sure that I can get my call it day-to-day responsibilities in a good position and really work a little bit harder to get on stretch projects and those things so I can start to build a brand and build a reputation across the business that Oliver is someone that can be counted on as well
Right.
as someone that can stretch and to do other things. And so, that's the one thing I'd recommend if you have the space and the capacity to do so. You have to always find that balance from a personal perspective, but how do you continue to challenge yourself and really put yourself in positions that you're not comfortable in? And that's
Yeah.
ultimately how you continue to grow and prove to, future leaders and other leaders across the organization that, Oliver's, he's got it. So,
Yeah. So I would say what I'm hearing you say is stepping out of your comfort zone,
mm,
but it's also going the extra mile and going above and beyond.
yeah, yeah. And it's not easy, right? And then I,
Right.
I have two daughters out there and outside here. And yeah, it's tough. I enjoy work and that's do something you love, right? It's not really work, that whole cliche that everyone says, but it's really true. I love what I do and I love the people that I work with, especially at Light and Wonder. And yeah, it doesn't feel like work. And so when
Yeah.
so even on vacations, I'm working, it doesn't feel like it to me. It just
Right.
feels like a natural extension of my life. But it is hard when you have other commitments and other responsibilities outside of work to be able to go that extra mile, but where you can do that and find capacity, within your day to day. So, always think about process improvement and how
Mhm.
can you do things better, faster, smarter,
Yeah.
that gives you that capacity to maybe stretch a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm coaching an executive who doesn't, but he didn't think he needed coaching until we started talking.
Hmm.
He came reluctantly, but once we started talking, one of the things he recognized is that he is very high performing, like you are describing.
Mm.
And what he didn't realize about himself is that he measure his standards and the way he perform. He measures people by those standards.
Yeah.
And to his detriment, he was frustrated. Why can't they be? And now he says like everybody can't be. I'm not gonna say his name. Everybody can't be like me. He's
Yeah.
starting to realize that.
Yeah.
How do you mitigate that? How do you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, listen. Everyone has their own style and an approach to it, right? I think for me, they're really just some core principles and just foundational things that you can't, you don't allow, right? So
Right.
those are just non-negotiable, so to speak.
Right.
And you know, outside of that, that everyone's going to have a different journey and a different path. There's not one path to a CFO. There's not one path to a CEO, or wherever you want to get to. And so, I always talk to my team about your pivot lefts, right? Everyone always thinks, I must get that next promotion. I must continue up this
Mm,
this one path. And really, it's the journey that takes you left and right that,
yeah.
really gives you that well-rounded experience that ultimately makes you that much more compelling when a role opens up. So don't be afraid to take your pivot left is what I tell people. And again, there's not one way of going about it and
Right.
allowing that in your team, that flexibility, as a leader, allowing that flexibility to have people attack things at different, in a different way, that makes it more interesting at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think everything, if I like what you said because when you're speaking of foundation, you're speaking of the foundational values of the business and
Yeah.
the things you won't compromise and the ethics.
Yeah.
But when it comes to work style, I mean, with finance, I'm sure there's a process that, okay, you got to follow this process to get there.
Right.
But when
Yeah.
it comes to work style, everybody's work style is different,
Yeah.
how they work, what they do, right?
Yeah.
And even then, that includes some people, the work life balance looks different to everyone, even
Absolutely.
that, right?
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
talking about that, what does that look like for you?
Work-life balance.
I know you said
Yeah.
for you work isn't
Yeah.
work, but if someone's listening to this, like being at the level you are, I know you're super busy.
Yeah.
So it's not even work life balance, but what do you do to manage those two so you don't burn out?
Yeah. You have to be. We actually talked about this in one of our town halls at Light and Wonder here just a couple weeks ago. But yeah, for me, it's you have to be intentional in carving out time, especially like I said with my family, my wife and my two daughters. I can get kind of wrapped up into the day to day
Yeah.
and really because it doesn't feel like work to me, right? I do enjoy it, but I have to be intentional. So, my wife keeps me honest. My
Yeah.
daughters always give me try not to curse, by the way. I'm a cursor. So, but they push me and
Uh-huh.
they're not afraid to give me feedback that, hey, Dad, you haven't hung out with us in a while, or, you come sit with me and watch a movie.
Yeah.
Those are things that kind of remind me that, hey, yeah, I have to be a bit more intentional about carving out time for myself and for my family.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do, especially as you get more senior.
Yeah.
At least that's what I found, because there is you feel the weight and the responsibility that you have to always, continue to execute and make sure that the business is humming
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
moving in the right direction. And it's great to have a great leader. I know Matt Wilson, very well, someone who cares very deeply about his family and finding out time and carving out time for his family. And that's really the culture that we want to build. And,
Yeah.
so we work hard, we play hard, but, that's the one thing that I also distill in my team is, find that time for yourself.
Yeah.
And, the work, we're not curing world hunger here. We make games for a living.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, let's be intentional about finding that time for yourself
Yeah.
to recharge and fill your cup. Yeah.
I love that. And I love that we talk about Matt Wilson because I think what happens at the top of the organization is what funnels
Absolutely.
down,
Yeah.
right? And setting that example and giving people permission
Yeah.
to take time off when he does, right?
Yeah.
Being that charismatic leader that he is, we all know he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I hate you for that, man. You're so charismatic now. Yeah, I mean,
We're
it's
gonna
like you're
pull a
so
clip
good
on
at it.
that.
Yeah, pull that clip. Yeah, cut that out of the clip. No, but that you're 100% right. It really
Yeah.
does start at the top, and it really does start with Jamie and Tony at the top of the board.
Yes,
The board, and
yes.
then coming down to Matt, myself and the executive leadership team, really setting that tone and building that culture. And it's been a journey. I think it's 18 months, almost 2 years that I've been with Light and Wonder. And just
Yeah.
even in those 2 years, I know the transformation that we've gone through as an organization over the last several years has just been remarkable. And, Matt, he's such a culture first guy. And
Yeah.
that's, a lot of people talk and say that they're culture, that
Right.
they're people first culture and all this other stuff. Some people don't really,
No,
put
Matt
their money
truly
where their
lives
mouths.
that.
Yeah.
I have seen it.
Agreed. Yep.
He lived it and I've known him for it will be 13 years,
Yeah.
right? I've been at our old job for 10
Yeah.
years, but he truly, truly lives that.
Yes.
But I was talking to you. We were on Zoom a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
and the thing I got out of that conversation, based on some things we talked about, is that you're a very people centric leader,
Yeah.
and you care a lot about your people.
I do. Yeah.
So, with that said, what do you find is your biggest challenge when it comes to your team and leading people? What is your biggest challenge?
Well, there are a lot of challenges. Yeah, but it's I think first and foremost you have to surround yourself with good people first and foremost,
Mm,
right? So
yeah.
so for me, culture and fit is probably when I say this in an interview process is it's like 51%,
Yeah.
right? And then
Yeah.
49% is like capabilities and being able to do your job. So for me, having people around you that are respectful, that can challenge you in a respectful way, that we can have fun and not take ourselves too seriously, hold ourselves accountable,
Yeah.
right? And so it makes it that much easier when you surround yourself with really just good people and talented people. So I've been lucky to have taken over a team that by and large was in place when I took over, and they're just great people across the board. I mean, that's a very
Yeah.
rare thing that you can, and I
Yeah.
have a pretty big team, a direct team, and it's pretty rare to have that. So I think, the biggest challenge I think for me is making sure I can keep the team engaged. They're very senior people, very experienced folks. They're really experts in their areas, in their
Yeah.
specific areas, and how do we continue to bring us all up? And I think as a leader, one of my responsibilities always is how do I set them up for the next position, the next role, the next journey? And
Yeah.
that's been something, if I look back in my career, how lucky I've been to have had just great leaders,
Yeah.
like Daryl Cross. Shout out to Daryl. I don't know if he'll ever watch this, but I'll make sure he does. But Daryl or Connie James,
Yes.
just great leaders that I've had that really has given me the opportunity to elevate, and that's
Yeah.
what I want to do for my team. And so I think the challenge when you have such a high dynamic, high performing team
Yeah.
is, how do we keep them motivated? How do we keep them engaged? How do we keep them developing? And set them up to take my job at some point in the near future, right? And that's
Yes.
my goal.
And there it is, right there. Set them up to take my job. When you're
Yep.
setting a succession plan and you're not a leader that's holding on and you're not afraid that somebody's going to take your job, but you're proud that you're setting them to take your job, I think
Yeah.
that's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you see so many times people holding on to what they have and they're not empowering people.
Yeah. And I see that a lot.
Yes,
And I see
we've
that a
seen it a
lot
lot. Yeah.
throughout my career. And like I said, I've had great leaders throughout my career that really just showed me, what really good leadership looks like.
Yeah.
And I still have a long ways to go. And
Yeah.
it's further development, personal development is so important to me. But yeah, I mean, my saying is my responsibility is to set you up for your next role, whether it's at Light and Wonder or somewhere else. And I
Yeah.
know, we're not a massive organization, right?
Right.
We're a global company. We have quite a few employees, but you know, there's going to be a time I know that
Yeah.
the music will stop and there's not going to be enough chairs. But
Right.
if I have set up the team, for that next step, whether it's here or somewhere else, then I've done my job as a leader.
Yeah. Yeah. I,
Mm.
I love that. Excellent. Who would you say impacted you the most throughout your career? In a positive way,
In a
that is.
positive way. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
yeah, I've been so lucky. I brought up Daryl, I brought up Connie, Matt's been inspirational to me. Tony Corsanos, who's the executive vice chair, who was the CFO of, Aristocrat several years ago. I've just been around just really amazing people. But I think my dad has probably been the one person that, I've seen the good and the, you know,
Yeah.
opportunities, not so good, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, he's been so supportive to me. My mom and my dad have been so supportive to me over the years. And, you know, yeah, I definitely would not be where I am today. Just my personality, my work ethic, the way I've developed into a father, that's all because of them first and foremost. So yeah, I
Yeah.
would say my parents. So
So when you look back on your career and you're thinking, and like 10 years ago, did you aspire to be a CFO?
yeah, no, I think it's always been kind of that end goal for me. Yeah, is to become a CFO. And again, that came back from my dad, just watching my
Yeah.
dad, throughout his career. And so, yeah, I knew very early on, and that's, going through high school and college, I knew at that point that's exactly what I wanted to be at some point. And so
Yeah.
everything I've done in my career has been, you know, to get to that ultimate goal. And to your point, I've been so lucky and fortunate to
Yeah.
have gotten, the CFO role here at Light and Wonder, and just what a wild ride it's been.
That is incredible because I know a lot of young kids coming out of college, right? Young adults coming
Yeah,
out of college. And I saw you spoke at UNLV. I kind of stalked you a little bit. I saw you were talking to them about future business leaders.
yeah,
But what would you say to them? Because they come out and they don't know what they'll do, but it seems like you identified your North Star
yeah,
and you knew where you were going. And the saying, miss every target you can't see. And you
Yeah,
could waste a lot of time trying to
yeah,
navigate that.
yeah,
What advice would you give to them if they're trying to figure out and sort through, like, man, what will be my North Star?
yeah. I mean, it's. I think nowadays it's a bit. It's such a different world now than when I grew up. It's you
Yeah.
just get so much information, good, bad, right,
Yeah,
wrong,
yeah.
and different information. Gosh, you ask my daughter outside, what does she want to be? One day she wants to be a musician, then she wants to be she wants to be a golfer, and then she hates golf now, and so she wants to be a volleyball player, or she wants to be an actor, or she wants
Yeah.
to be a finance person, and so there's just so many kind of mental stimuli these days that
Yeah.
it's hard to kind of dial in. And I think the one thing I would say is, because I was fortunate to kind of have my North Star such an early age, is, when you're younger, you can take more risk, and you can, really start to experiment, kind of what your interests are and how can you make that into a career.
Yeah.
Um, the one thing I would say is, you know, you this is me personally, so
Right.
you don't want to wait too long,
Right.
right? So you do want to start to kind of formulate some general directions.
Yeah.
It's tough to be a finance person. I have a friend that I started my career out at JP Morgan, and she ended up becoming a veterinarian,
Oh, wow.
right? And
Yeah.
that's kind of rare. You
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
see that often. At least I haven't. But I think, yeah, I think coming out of school, experiment that's where you can be a bit riskier before you have family, before you
Right.
have, real responsibility, so to speak. You can start to kind of play around with that. But once you kind of narrow that scope,
Right.
then it's
It's go
go
time.
time, and just
Yeah.
no, don't stop, work your butt off. And yeah, that's the way I've done it. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's been pretty helpful for me.
So it seemed to me like you have a very resilient mindset. And
Not
when you
always, but yes, I try to. Yeah, not always.
when you set out to go, like you're going, and you're going. So, so I understand. Yeah, you're a young adult out of college. You're trying
Mm,
to figure out what you'll do and navigate through that.
yeah.
But when it comes to mindset, um, what encouragement would you give to someone like, hey, you gotta build this mindset of work ethics, of moving forward,
Yeah.
of doing what you want to do. What mindset would you encourage people, young adults, to
Yeah.
build?
Oh gosh, there's so many things that I would say there. When you're kind of coming out of school, and you're figuring it out, the one thing I would say is don't do anything half-assed, you know.
Love that. Yeah.
Just you got to pour your heart into it. That again, this is just Oliver, right? This may
Yeah.
not resonate with everyone, but it really is, you know, find something that you truly enjoy and love. I know that's such a corny thing to say, but
It's
it's true,
true. It's true, Oliver.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. And whether it's an industry, whether it's a job type, whether it's a function, right? Just
Yeah.
find something that you really enjoy. That's why, for me, being in the entertainment space, but being in finance, that really married a couple of passions of mine, right?
Yeah.
And so even in the gaming space that I'm in today, we're providing entertainment, we're providing,
Yeah.
right, those type of experiences. And so, I'm lucky that I can actually check a couple boxes from that point of view, right? Which is I could be in the entertainment space and I could be a finance professional, which is what I've always kind
Yeah.
of wanted to do since I was a kid. But yeah, I mean, the mindset of, you know, don't be half-assed about it. Go, full charge ahead.
Yeah.
Don't leave anything on the table. Don't,
Mm,
and just
good.
really just, work through that, but also be open to feedback,
Yeah.
to different ideas. Don't be single-minded, but be open to other opportunities and capabilities. You're never going to
Yeah.
be perfect at anything that you're going
Yeah.
to do. So always be open to learn. You're
Yeah.
never going to be you're never going to be at that state where you're fully developed.
Right. Right.
So,
You be a lifelong learner.
especially at a young age, and
Mm-hmm.
then as you kind of mature, into a career, yeah, that yeah, that does get hard because you think you know everything,
Right,
and
right. Yeah.
like I've said, I know I'm never the smartest person in the
Person,
room,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
so that I always attack it from that point of view. So
Yeah. I really like that because what I'm hearing you say, it's so important because you continue to learn
yeah,
and grow when you are out of college, and it doesn't matter what job you're at because you can lead from anywhere, any
yeah,
position.
absolutely,
Right? Talk
absolutely.
to us about that. You're
Yeah,
agreeing.
that is one of my, that is one of my core principles is I don't care what your title is. I don't care how long you've worked for the company or in an industry.
Yeah.
You have something to bring to the table. You have an idea, you have a thought.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid,
Yeah.
lean into that. And that's something that, again, I've been empowered throughout my career, through my leaders that if you have a good idea, you have a passion to do something, don't be afraid to raise your hand. Don't be afraid to speak up.
Yeah.
And that's the culture that, again, I've been brought up in, and that's the culture I want to continue to foster, which is,
Yeah.
this high dynamic team. There's no ego. If
Right.
you have an ego and
Y-
you don't have a
You
spot
know,
on
that's
my
funny,
you
right?
don't have a
Yeah.
spot on my
Yeah.
team,
Yeah.
right? And we're all in it to win as a collective. And going back to Matt again, I don't want this to be a Matt Wilson thing, but that's the one thing that
Yeah.
he's really
He
taught
said,
me, right?
yes,
It's
yes.
it's you have to bring people together who have absolutely different experiences,
Yeah.
different mindsets, different personalities. But
Yeah.
when you get onto the pitch, the court, we're one team and we
That's right.
move, we make a decision. We may not agree, but we move. And again, even back to your point and question is, I don't care what level you're at,
Right.
what your experience is,
Yeah.
lean into that journey and find a way
Yeah.
to provide your stamp on it.
Yeah. So you have two daughters. I'm sure you're noticing that they have different personalities.
Yeah.
So some people are born with this, um, this, what do you call it? To lead. They're born to lead. And
Mm,
then some people are just like, I just want to follow,
yeah.
right? They have their own personalities. But would you say, even though you're born to lead, you do have to continue to grow and educate yourself,
Yeah.
to become that transparent people leader. And I
Yeah.
feel like you've done that throughout your life to get you to where you are. You continuously, you continue to learn to get you
Yeah.
to where you are. Would you say that?
Yeah. No, I think, so I'll pick on my two daughters. I'll highlight my two daughters, right? It's, Addison is more of an extrovert. She's very gregarious. She loves, she's, an A type personality, which is, I love that about her. She's fierce and, and obviously at times that gets her into trouble, but
Yeah.
it's all good, right? And then Zoe, my youngest, much more of an introvert, but very smart, and you can tell she scans the situation and can read the room pretty well, and yeah, two very different personalities, but the foundation, the core, and the principles are consistent, right? They're
Yeah.
good humans first and foremost. Um, you know, I think those who are loud leaders, kind of,
Yeah.
extroverted leaders tend to, there's like kind of this thought that they are the best leaders. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
know that that's always
Right.
the case, right? I think you look at someone like Siobhan Lane as a perfect example. She is not an extrovert.
Yeah.
And I'm not actually, although my wife will probably disagree with this, I don't, I'm more of a high functioning introvert
Right.
where I can kind of stretch out. But yeah, I think you can find leadership in any shape or form.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're perceived as a born leader or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that there's just one category of leadership. You
Right.
you can find great leaders across the spectrum of
Mm-hmm.
personalities, and so you know find your voice, and
Right.
it doesn't have to be the loudest voice,
Right. I
right?
love
But
that.
but when you speak, and that's something that, again, I've heard in my career throughout my careers, but when you speak, make it impactful,
Yeah.
and find those moments to insert yourself. But yeah, I think there's a balance there. I don't think there is a person that's born to lead. I think you develop and learn, and
That's right.
and especially in this day and age, you have to evolve your
Right.
leadership positions. You can't just stay as a single
So
constant
good. Yeah.
over time, and that's just how dynamic this world has become. That you
Yeah.
have to be nimble and you have to be able to flex up and down and be able to deal with a wide ranging,
Yeah.
dynamic team of different personalities. And,
Yeah.
you're not, I don't think you're born with that. You develop that over time.
Right. Yeah. And I think if you are fortunate to align with the right people,
Yeah.
like you, for example,
Yeah.
right, you got the right people in your path to help you and navigate and get to where you were going.
Yeah.
That's such a beautiful thing.
It is.
Yeah.
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 And not everyone is as fortunate, right? I've been,
Right.
gosh, I can't tell you how lucky I've been, in my life and my career. And yeah, not everyone has that same,
Yeah.
opportunity, or have had the same opportunities I've had and experiences that I've had. But ultimately, it's always up to you. And
Yes.
you own
That's right.
your path. You
That's
own
right.
your,
That's right.
your
Yeah.
development and ultimately how you show up.
I
And,
love that.
so
Yeah. It is absolutely how you show up and it's absolutely up to you. I always say
yeah,
your development
yeah,
is your responsibility.
yeah,
And I know you were fortunate,
that's right.
Oliver, but for anybody listening to this, like you've got to align yourself with the right people. You've got to look like I network so well at Aristocrat, and if I knew that's what I was doing, I would have done it even so much better.
Yeah,
I didn't even know
yeah,
like that was a skill and something I was doing.
yeah,
But I would say go out there and find people. I didn't care if it was a C level that came into the business or a janitor.
yeah.
I want to know that person.
Absolutely.
And
No, I think
yeah,
that's exactly right. And yeah, you build your network. I, to your point, but I do want to highlight one of the things that you said because yes, you own your own development. And what I say to my team is, as a leader, it's not my responsibility to drag you up,
that's right.
right? So what I say is, meet me halfway.
Yes.
If you meet me halfway, it is my responsibility as a leader to then meet you and help you in your journey. And that's what I tell my team day in, day out. Like literally just had this conversation this
Yeah.
morning, I swear. And yeah, I think that's the important piece. Surround yourself with as best as you can. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
you don't always get to choose your own leaders, but find great companies that are aligned with your core values and principles. Typically, if
Yeah.
that's aligned, then you have a good starting point,
Yeah.
and then it's going back, work your butt off, you know, make a name for yourself, execute at a very high level, and
Yeah.
you're almost forcing that
Right.
development and take advantage of whatever tools,
Right.
experiences that you possibly can take,
Yeah.
because it is a two-way street, right? Hopefully, those who work at Light and Wonder are getting as much out of that work experience as we are as a company getting out
Yeah.
of the employees and the creators. So
So I want an example. Anyone listening to this, when you say meet me halfway, what does that mean? Give me an example.
yeah, just I so Sally, if I were your manager, right? If I was your manager, what I won't do is I won't force you to, to take on stretch roles. I won't, I'm not going to impress that upon you.
Right.
If Sally comes to me and says, "Hey, Oliver, I'm getting my job done, at a very high level, I'm executing the core of my responsibilities. There are things that I want to do in my career. I want to aspire to become a CFO, CEO, COO, whatever it is.
Right.
Help me map that out. What do you think? What do you
Right.
think that looks like?" And that's where, if you get your stuff done, your work done at a very
Right.
high level, I'm more than happy to sit with you. And like I said, I've quarterly skip levels with folks in my organization that we have career discussions.
Right.
Where do you think I need to go with my career based on my experiences, and what do you see out there that can fill certain gaps in my experience? And
Yeah.
I've had many folks who have worked for me that I've when an opportunity arises, then I think, oh, Sally,
Yeah.
yeah, this would be a great opportunity for Sally to to now expand her experience if there's another role across the organization. So so meet me halfway, get your, kind of get your fundamentals and your kind of day-to-day done, and then seek out
Yeah.
those experiences and work with me. And then I'm in it all day, every day. I'm happy to
Yeah.
support that mentality, which is, how do I
Yeah.
continue to develop and be better?
I like that because what I'm hearing you say is that also like who's talking about who's talking about you when you're not in the boardroom and you're saying when I get to know my skip levels and I get to know these people, I can actually identify like who is qualified for whatever's coming up.
Yeah.
And it's so key, right? What are two traits you would say like two of the highest traits of a great leader?
Ooh.
This is why I didn't give you these questions in
Yeah,
advance.
no, it's a great question. There are quite a few traits. I mean, I've said it a couple times here. I think being nimble is a great trait of a leader. Being flexible to kind of move up, down, left, right. Because
Yeah.
you really, as a leader, it's just the business world today. The world in general is just so dynamic. You can't,
Yeah.
like I said earlier, you can't just be, a one
Right.
trick pony, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I think having that dynamic ability to connect with people, I think is very important because what I've learned, and this is not my natural state, is how do you become that visionary leader, and how do you inspire people? That's not
Yeah.
that's not my natural instinct. I'm of the old school, which is work your butt off to get this job
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
done. And and so I think, planting that kind of flag on the hill, we say that a lot
Yeah.
as a leader. I think that's so important, but being able to make that flexible, right,
Yeah. Yeah.
is so important. And I think, broadly speaking, leadership today, there's just, like I said, so many different forms
Yeah.
of that. And, being able to, create experiences for your team
Mm-hmm.
and opportunities for your team, to me, I think that's such an important factor to being a leader over time and really developing, a dynamic team. And so,
Yeah.
you know, if you don't give them those opportunities, then you're going to have churn, you're going to have instability in your base, and
Yeah.
that's always tough to be effective when you don't have a
Yeah.
team that's pulling in the same direction at all times.
Yeah. I don't think you're old fashioned when you say being nimble because I think or it's old school. I think it's the foundation of being a versatile leader,
Yeah,
right? You got to be able to change with the tides and what's happening. We've seen what happened with the blockbusters and the people who didn't want to
yeah,
change
yeah,
and move with the tide. So you definitely have to be moving with that.
yeah.
So, what would you say to younger Oliver if you look back and say, "Man, this is what I would have said to
Yeah.
younger Oliver"? What would you say to if you were to say something to younger Oliver to give him a piece of advice? What would that be?
Yeah, I think it's trust yourself a bit more.
Mm,
I think that, growing up, was very insecure. And, I still am to a certain degree today. I don't try to show it very often, but, it's, yeah, trust yourself that,
mm,
you're good enough, and,
right,
and keep doing the things that you're doing, and good things will happen. I think earlier in my career, and I'm still working through some of these things, is, I
right,
cared a lot about what people thought about me,
right.
as a person, as a leader. As I've kind of grown into this role over this past year, it's wild. It's, August will be kind of a year since my interim position, which is, I can't believe this year's gone by so fast.
Mhm.
But, kind of growing into this role, and really developing that. Yeah, I think that's the one thing I would tell my younger self, that
Yeah,
you got this.
yeah,
Don't doubt it. Just trust it. And I think that's what derails a lot of younger folk as well.
mm,
They expect instant gratification in this world, that, it's, everything is handed, everything is, it's a weird dynamic for me. And I was like that, growing up. It's like, man, it's my career progressing fast enough? Did I make the right decisions?
right.
You know, it's, trust that, yeah, you're gonna mess up every once in a while. You're not gonna make all the right decisions, and
Yeah.
it'll be okay,
Yeah.
and that's all part of the experience, and
Yeah.
just embrace that.
Yeah. So now what advice would you give to the younger generation that's listening to this in terms of how did you build your self-confidence over the years?
Oh, yeah, that's a journey. That's a lifelong journey,
Of
Sally.
course.
It's
Yes, yes.
yeah, like I said, I'm still working through those things, but yeah, you want to surround yourself with people that will give it to you straight,
Mm.
right? And I think that the good, the bad, the ugly,
Yeah.
right? And I think those are just building blocks that as you get that information and you go through those experiences where you trip and fall and you fail, and then you just say, listen, I'm not going to let that happen again.
Yeah.
And you just keep on moving forward and not letting that defeat you. Uh, that to me, that's part of the journey, that is inevitable. And just embrace that,
Yeah.
just embrace it. There are no shortcuts
Mm.
in this life. I really do believe that for anything that's meaningful, there are no shortcuts.
Right.
Being a father, being a great father, being a parent, there are no shortcuts to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Being
Yeah.
a great doctor, finance professional, salesperson, there are no shortcuts to it. And if you want to
Right.
have longevity and you want to have, long-term success, it's the falls, it's the rises, it's
Yeah.
the sideways loops and turns that ultimately give you and build that character and those experience bases that will then
Yeah.
take you to future heights.
And the same way that success helps to build confidence also, and I don't see it as failure. I see it as lessons learned.
Yeah,
Build
absolutely.
self-confidence also.
Yeah,
You can look at it from the perspective of if I keep making this mistake, or it's just a
yeah,
lesson learned and I can move
yeah,
on and learn from it.
yeah. And that's going back to your point earlier about surrounding, hopefully surrounding or being able to surround yourself with great people and great
Yeah.
leaders is they give you that space to do
To
that.
do that. Yeah.
And then they
Yeah.
pick you up and say, it's all right. And,
Yeah.
hey, listen, we just learned something here and let's move forward. And
Yeah.
you don't have that if you have someone that just beats you down.
And we've seen that
Oh,
too.
and I've seen that. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about that. And
Yeah.
so, and I've had that in my career as well. But, that's folks that, and that's another trait going back to what's a good leader is really allowing the
Yeah.
space for people to not fail, right? To learn,
To learn. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And when you're trying to make quarterly, you know, targets and you're trying to make annual, targets and you're kind of consumed in the day to day. Yeah, sometimes it's hard
Right.
to allow that, but I think as a good leader, you allow that space, for your employees. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's the one thing I would say is to younger folks is you will mess up.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You
Oh
will
yeah.
fail.
Be
To
ready.
and
Yes.
and it fails not the right phrasing right there to your point.
Yeah. You will
You
learn some
will learn.
lessons.
You will learn a lot of lessons in your career, and
Yeah.
those who use that as fuel to move
Yeah.
forward
I like that.
versus, feeling defeated. And
Yes.
that's, what I try to teach my daughters is, you're not everything is going to be,
Yeah.
rainbows and
That's
butterflies,
right. That's
right?
right.
And you know, if you allow that to defeat you,
Mm.
shame on you. And I think
Yeah.
I want to build that into my daughters. I want them to know that, nothing in life is easy. And like I said earlier, nothing worthwhile is easy.
That's right.
And there will be bumps along the road. So
Yeah.
how you embrace that and how you use that as positive energy to move forward, that's what makes, the best. And
Yeah.
I'm still working on that. So,
So
it's
good, Oliver. Yeah.
it's
So
still a
good.
journey for me as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah. Is there anything that you want to talk about that I haven't asked you?
oh, no, I don't know. You've talked about my movie career, my aspiring filmmaking career.
That was so exciting. I'm like,
Yeah,
everybody needs to know
yeah.
that.
No,
Uh,
it's
yeah.
no, I can't
You
think
want
of
to give
anything
us a
else.
quick takeaway for the audience?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It depends on where and how you want to take this, but yeah, no, I mean, listen, I think this podcast. I've been following your journey here, and it's so amazing. I still remember the first time I met you, and first time it was you were supporting Rich Schneider, and that was the first time I met Rich, and yeah, just the journey and growth that you've seen. I think it's such an inspiration to so many. And yeah, just keep on going. And, that's what I can say to everyone else is, find your passion and
Yeah.
find, what you're kind of quote unquote born to do. And I think this
Yeah.
is what you're, being a coach and helping people and, that's just such an amazing
Yeah.
thing. And you can marry things that you love to do and do good. It's a great thing. So find your passion, find your love, and don't stop.
Don't stop. I like it. I like it. Well, thank you, Oliver. This was really good.
Yeah,
And I
thank
think
you.
there are some good points here for, any of the young folks listening, some lessons that they can learn from this. So thanks again.
Yeah,
I
appreciate it.
appreciate
Yeah,
you.
thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
And with that, friends, it's a wrap today.